Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Glad to see you all again. Welcome to Outstanding in Your Field. This is a title that I picked because, again, people that don't know us will think, whoa, what an arrogant guy this guy must be if he thinks he's so outstanding. But truly, what the name is supposed to mean, with maybe a little bit of sarcasm mixed in, is to let people know that you have to get outside the four walls of your church building and minister in the field that God has given you, and you need to learn how to do it outstandingly or with excellence. And that's what we want to cover over the next few weeks and share a little bit of how Jesus did it. And I don't know about you, I'm not really interested in how other people do it. I'm interested in how Jesus did it. And if I learn that, he'll mix his characteristics in with what we are doing and give an increase to it. And some plant, some water, but God gives the increase. So we're going back again, as we shared in the weeks past, that we were in Matthew chapter 13, we were in Mark chapter 4, and in Luke chapter 8, where it's duplicate stories of this parable of the sower that Jesus told. We covered verses 1 and 2 here, where it said that Jesus was out of the house. He got out of the building. He got out of the temple. He got out of the church. And there's a time and a place for church and teachings and all of those things. But there's a time when we need to get out of the building and do something to make a difference. We need to reach out to our families and to our loved ones the best we can. We're here at the Praise and Worship Family Outreach Center in Jasper, Tennessee, and we're about 15 years of reaching out into our community, and we've done it different ways and different methods. We've in a church of just 30 or 40 congregates, we have managed to feed 1,000 people or more a month, and many times. And so there's a way to increase, and that's what verse 2 is talking about. Not only getting out of the house, but as the multitude increased, Christ found a way to increase his ability to be able to share with others. And he got on a boat and went out into the harbor so that his voice would magnify through the harbor, the wharf, wherever they called it there. I'm from Maine, so we use different terminology up there. But he found a way to amplify his footprint, amplify his voice, amplify what he was doing, so that it created the most effect and most responsibility. So we're going to drop down into verse 3 here and begin looking at this parable that Jesus gives here. And it says here in verse 3, and he spake many things unto them in parables, saying, Behold, a sower went forth to sow, and when he sowed, some seeds fell by the wayside. Now, we know that, and it goes on, and the fowls came and devoured them up. Now, this is important. This is one step where Jesus says, look, here's the seed, and he went out and he sowed it, and it fell by the wayside. Now, if you, to me, this would kind of share to us that we're not going in the row that Christ has prepared. We're not going in the direction that Christ has prepared. We're just kind of slinging seed around more like a shotgun or some kind of seed. That's fine if you're trying to plant a lawn, but if you're trying to plant a garden, there's a row to it. There's a method to it. There's a way of doing it so that it harvests the best way. Verse 5, some fell upon stony places where they had not much earth, and forthwith they sprung up because they had no deepness of earth. So stony places, to me, speak of a row that's not prepared yet. But it also speaks, when it uses the word stones throughout the scripture, it's usually referring back to the law. And the law was written on smooth, or stones, stony tablets and so forth. And so this kind of speaks of a law. So that tells me that they're spreading the seed out, but they're doing it in a legalistic manner. They're doing it in a way that is creating more of a legalism than a relationship. And this is, according to the scripture, there's no deepness in it. When somebody's watching you, you'll do better. But when they're not watching you, you don't, because it doesn't become a lifestyle. It just becomes a legalistic principle that if they catch me, then I'm guilty. If they don't catch me, I'm not guilty. This is something we've got to get past, and that's not the way that's going to produce the most fruit. And he goes on here, verse 6, when the sun was up, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away. If you're constantly being in a legalistic battle, you don't have the roots to stand through trials and storms. You finally throw up your hands and say, I can't live by that standard. I can't live up to that standard. No one can. The whole idea is the law that was given, no one was able to live up to that standard. So we have to understand that in order to survive, the heat of the sun also has to be mingled with our roots going deeper, getting proper water, proper nutrients, and so forth. You can't just sit on top of the law and burn people with the image. And it says, some fell among thorns. The thorns sprung up and choked them. Now, these are thorny ways, and we'll get into the interpretation in weeks to come, but we want to just cover this today, and that's verse 8. It says, but other fell into good ground and brought forth fruit, some 100-fold, some 60-fold, some 30-fold. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. Now, the two things I want you to know, that's 100 times. In other words, if you plant one seed, you got 100 seeds back. If you plant one seed, you got 60 seeds back. Or whatever fruit you're planting, whatever vegetable you're planting, it was 100 times, 60 times, or 30 times greater than it was before. And you'll notice that the first three, the wayside, the stony ground, and the thorny ground, it produced nothing. It produced nothing. And so only the seed that falls on good ground is going to produce, again, 100 times, 60 times, or 30 times more than what you actually planted. So my suggestion is plant on good ground. I was in ministry for some time before I realized that 75% of the seed that I was sowing was producing nothing, because I was either slinging it out there to people who weren't ready to receive it, the ground had not been prepared, their earth had not been prepared, or I was slinging it out there in a legalistic manner, or I was planting it in places where it was going to be easily choked out and they weren't ready to change, or I wasn't presenting it in a way that talked to them about change. We need to concentrate on the good ground. And you say, well, what's the good ground? The good ground is where the gardener tells us to plant it. He knows when the ground has been prepared. He knows when it's ready. He knows when it's not legalistic. He knows when it's time to get out of the thorny, poking, prodding people. That's not what's going to produce anything. What's going to produce is ground that's been prepared, ground that's been nourished, ground that's been watered. And you have to find the seed that Christ wants to give us and make sure that you understand that God only wants you to plant where he tells you to plant. So this is what we're going to cover in the weeks to come. And so get ready to figure out how to not just be out in the field, but do it with excellence and do it to produce much fruit. And that's what we'll be looking forward to learning how to do. God bless you.